So this is my model, the one you should enhance and develop into something awesome. First thing is, and very important in terms of realism, is to increase the level of detailation. A nice model will have a lot of details. Since we are going to use this model just for our renderings, it makes good sense to choose in which direction your cameras will shoot, just to model the parts you will see in your final visuals. Yeah. Makes no sense to model and develop parts of your model which we will not be seeing. No? For instance, this part eventually. No? So as soon as you have a rough volume, it will be advisable to define your cameras. That will be the first step you will do. So now cameras, in this case, I know I will just set some keyframes. Yeah. Remember, you have to create some kind of hero shot. Yeah. A hero shot is a very dramatic view of your building. I will probably put it somewhere in a background with montañous scenery, or you will have the beach. You want to see that. Yeah. Often for the hero shots, you will use a camera with a very wide angle. So I will change this to 28 millimeter. Maybe something like that. Huh? For this. In this case, I am saving that in my keyframes. In your case, you will save, if you're using Archicad, you will save it with an Archicad camera, and you will have a set of cameras. Yeah. So each program is a little bit different. I can take another one and just create a view, maybe more like an elevation of the building. Yeah. Something I'm observing from quite a normal height. Yeah. And this would be my two cameras. Yeah. Check, check. Good. Now that I set up cameras, I can go to the view and say, okay, I will need some detailation in this area here. So let's model some kind of geometry. Yeah. I will add some blanks to this. Yeah. I will bevel that, bevel some geometry out. Yeah. This is some wooden planks, some kind of stuff like that. Bring it a little bit out just to create this. So I'm not liking that. Again, check. Okay. Something in this style, yeah. And we can add some geometry to the roof. Yeah. Also, just create some lines, some annoyances. The more realistic, the better. Yeah. Let's go back to our view. No sense to do that on the top. Yeah. Maybe this could have some kind of edge and lines and seams and things like that. at the end they will show quite nicely. The more detail, the more realism. Probably my terrace will need also some treatment. So go for that too. Let's erase this edges. Let's change that to how many? 0. Maybe something like that. Good. And let's bevel that too. Yeah. This kind of blanks in the folder. Okay. Now that you have the camera, you define the lights. As you see, we have two types of lights. One light is my sun, in this case a directional light. If I turn it off, the scene will not go completely dark. This is because I have another light source, which is the environment. So if you see here my environments, if I turn them down to 0, zero luminescence, we see everything goes dark and I have nothing. If I turn back my sun, I will have only the sun, which gives this rather harsh edges. Okay. So this is fine. Let's start with my environment. I will add some image to the back. Let's see why this is not showing. And I can start playing around with my camera, adjusting it to the image. This is called a backdrop image. It's an image you can throw to the back of your camera and you can use it to adjust your perspective. So we'll go back to my camera, and maybe I will start playing again with my perspective just to adjust it to this image. In terms of for this task, it's important to pay attention to three things. One is the perspective, of course. In this case, there is not such a hint of where the perspective goes to. We don't have any straight lines, but we still have an horizon, and the horizon might be somewhere here. So that one we have to respect. For that, I created like an infinite plane. If you see, it's a plane. It's a plane which goes just a very, very large plane. So if I scale it, it's kind of going into infinite. So now I can start pushing that to match this line to the horizon. So it should be somewhere like that. There will be the horizon. I will hide that. Start looking if this is okay. Looking for my perspective. Positioning again. Checking out. This looks really fine. This might be really cool. Second thing you have to take in consideration is scale. So if I see here the small rocks and the grass, I will try to match them to the scale of the building. And the third thing is light. And light, as you see, in this case is very soft. It's coming somehow from maybe from the back. So I will change that. In this case I can say to Modo to look through the light so I can start moving it, and it will be probably something like this. Yeah, I want to match it quite accurately. To my, see, yeah. The light is coming somewhere from here. I see it because it's very bright. So let's keep it like that. My light is also quite soft. So let's change the quality of the light. Let's say 5% blurriness. Yeah? So it's blurring my edges. It's too much, but it's probably also not that strong in this case. It's more like coming from the whole environment rather than from the sun directly. So my environment might need a little bit of a push. Light, perspective, and scale. Yes. So now that I decided to do it this way, maybe I will add a little bit of, well, I don't know, maybe here to my, maybe we'll add a little bit of details here too. Just a small scene, just to make it a little bit more detailed. Okay, so it's quite nice. What? Okay, good. Eventually, in this case, you see you have like a slope, so you would probably want also to finish this up. I will do it in Photoshop. I will create here some kind of landscape which will compensate for that. Yeah. Now I will render this. This is the last part. Once you have your model, you generated your geometry, details, you set up your cameras, you have your light under control. Yeah. Now you want to render this. Yeah. So for rendering, there is my final render, which is a rendering, it's this image as you see it, and you will have to render an alpha. In this case, you manage this with an extra output. In Archicad, you will have to save it as RGB plus alpha. That's the format. Yeah. In that case, you will have an extra alpha. I will add another output just to show you that you, in 3D rendering, 3D programs and visualization, you have the possibility to render a series of outputs. Yeah? For instance, you see all these are embedded in Modo. One which is really interesting is called Surface ID. And let's render this just to see what Surface ID does. Yeah? So don't worry about these annoyances. The background is only there to create, for you to adjust your perspective. We are going to take this image without any background and we are going to paste it in Photoshop on top of this image, and we are going to start masking and doing all our magic there. So here I have my final rendering. This is how the alpha looks like. You're going to use this masking your rendering, and this is what's called a Surface ID. It creates a unique color for each material you're using. Quite useful too if you want to start selecting very fast some issues. Yeah. As a little bit of a drawback, since these are pixels, the seams are not 100% sharp, so you might have some inaccuracies there, but in general it's a very useful tool. So I would love to see you figuring this out for Archicad, and if I see some surface ID in your assignments, yes, awesome, yeah, very good. Okay, so this is rendered. I will render it in another way. I can render it also directly into a Photoshop file. I will ask it to render 3 to 4 directly into a layered image. Let's put it in my rent folder. We call it bungalow 01. And just save it. In terms of resolution, I would just suggest you keep these images small, just for the testing purpose. Later, when you are sure you have what you want, you just render the final rent in a high resolution, and you can take all the time you want. You can replace this anytime in Photoshop later on. So I will rent this in this lower resolution, and I will render it later again in high res. Okay. Now let's go to my final rendering. This is how it looks like. Okay, my two images, yeah. I will have the final, in this case it's all already together. I will have my final image, my alpha, and my surface ID. The last thing I will do is I will select all, copy this, create a layer mask here with Alt click. I will activate that layer mask and paste it inside. Back to my layer, and I will have my building nicely masked. Even the transparencies are coming out. Yeah. So quite cool. Here I'm having some artifacts. This is something I will have to check what happens. Eventually there are some details I'm not liking so much, yeah? But this seam here looks good, and all these plants and so on. It's quite nice. If I have my surface ID, just the way how to work with this, let's say I want to select my roof, yeah? I go to click on that layer, use my magic wand tool, and I can select that area with no problems. Yeah? So if I want to paint something into my roof, I just can do so. Yeah? For some reasons I want to have like an orange roof. Yeah? But as you see, precision is not the thing in this kind of selection. Yeah? It's more for a rough editing. Yeah? So this is what I want to see. I want you to deliver this kind of models, yeah, of renderings, all in white. I want to see one in daylight and one in night. At night, so for night you will have to add some lights to it. That's what we are going to do now. For the daylight, the hero shot and the subjective view and this quality with an alpha all together in one Photoshop file and the alpha activated. That would be cool. And these two, you can just hide them. I would group them, call them work, and hide that too. And now you have your final filtering on this. Yeah. Same thing for this. Select all, click on select all, copy that image, go to your final rendering, create a layer mask, Alt, click on that, paste, back to this, take your two layers, group them, call them work, hide, and save. That's it. Those images are ready. Yeah. Back to our model scene. Now I want to have some light. So for that I will add some light to the scene. In my case, I just add them. If I see here under my lights, I have a set of lights I can use. It's quite conventional, area lights, directional lights, dome, photometric, all these ones. Let's start with a spotlight. You see it there. I have to just change the rotation. It's looking in the wrong direction, should be looking down. Come on. Minus 90. Okay. Now let's put it somehow the right height. So we'll keep it somewhere here. Go to the top view, position again. Maybe it makes sense to hide the roof for this task. Yeah? And here you already see a spotlight has a few parameters. Yeah, it has a cone. The cone has an angle and also a grade of softness. Yeah. In my case, I can just grab one of these and increase the angle of that cone. And if I grab this other point, I can make it softer. Yeah. I will create an array. I want to have a set of lights. Remember, realism comes with a lot of light. Spots, 1, 2 spots will never be enough. You need quite a set of them. So let's have an array, an instance array. We'll create that one. Yeah. So let's increase that number, maybe quite a lot of light, maybe too much. Let's leave it like that. Let's see how this works. And again, remember, no? Now I want to have a night scene. I will need to turn off environment, yeah? Make it dark, make it really, really pitch black, yeah? And you will have to turn off your sun, don't forget that, yeah? Okay? There is where you will have your light. Back, move on, and you see how it's already showing quite nicely. I think I want it to be a little bit bigger. Where is the cone of this? It's 90 degrees. Since they are all instances, they will all change together. Maybe a little bit brighter. And now the light is coming beautifully out, yeah? Even there is some overlapping here. There is another thing I want to show you, is called photometric light. If you do, you can use your conventional lights, perfect, yeah? Again, if you manage to figure out how to do this, that will be amazing, yeah? Photometric light are lights which are linked to a profile. A profile is a small software which will change the way this light is projected. Yeah? Lights have often this weird halos and these caustics and these shadows and so on. So you can have this kind of profiles for different kind of lights. Yeah? So if I look for something that I like, I can see where an interior spot might look. These are quite simple. Maybe we can go for something like that. Let me see. One of these. is appealing to me. They look cool. So then, this kind of light. Mm-hmm. What's happening? Oh. Sorry, it worked. A bit annoying. So if you see now, the light will have some kind of patterns over there. Yeah? No? It's a little bit dark. So let's select some opacity here and make it maybe a little bit brighter. Yes, not so sure if I like it so much. I will look for another one. Something with less structure, maybe one of these at the end, maybe that one. And if you see the lights, the patterns on the flooring and so on, they change, yeah. In my opinion, this is not enough. I will just take one of these guys, yeah. Oops. I'll just create a new one. Again, a photometric light I would like to have. In this case, I will take something with structure. I like to have that. It will wash very nicely along the wall. Okay. I have to rotate that back. -90, so it looks down. Let's push it up. And what I want to do now is to have it as a small spot, washing out my works. Yeah. Duplicate this guy. And we'll move it over here, so I have another light here. Let's see how this looks like. Wow, nice. Yeah. And maybe we'll duplicate that again. And we'll move it over here to have some light on the terrace. This kind of lighting, yeah. So roof back. Roof is hiding my light, so we have to push it back down a little bit. Maybe it's a set of lights in the front, yeah. This could be nice. Duplicate again. Over here. Duplicate. So I have a nice light. One thing you might check when you're having a night scene is to fill your interior with a little bit of furniture. As you see, the moment you are having light at night, interiors show quite clearly, so an empty house will not look that interesting. It would be very advisable to fill it up with some geometry here, some furniture pieces. Check out the assets I put in Dropbox. Use the link in the forum section. That's the link to the folder. You will find a lot of assets there. Start using that. For now, I want you to render an image like this. In this case, I'll save my scene and render again those 2 frames as a layered image. I will call it Bungalow 1 Night, and I will render this. It will take a little bit longer. I will pause the video now, just so you don't have to wait all the time, and I will come back when it's ready.